Hey everybody, welcome to the Dollar Vigilante. I have a great guest coming in. It's Vays. He's a past Wall Streeter. He's a narco-capitalist now. He's sort of turned to the good side. He's one of the sort of biggest experts out there on Bitcoin. He's actually what I call or a lot of people call a Bitcoin maximalist. That means he's a huge Bitcoin aficionado. He covers it, he follows it, he trades it, but he actually doesn't really like any of the other cryptocurrencies very much. And he actually hosts a show called Crypto Scam, where he tries to show how a lot of the other cryptocurrencies are actually scams. You might be interested in that. Check out his show. He's also of LibertyLifeTrail.com, and he's actually attended the past two in Acapulco's, and he's done trading sort of seminars at both. And he's going to be doing another one this year after Acapulco, after the Dollar Vigilante Investment Summit, which is on February 24th. Then February 25th to 28th is in Acapulco. Cryptopoco is February 28th, and Tone will be speaking at that. And then after that, on March 2nd and 3rd, he's actually hosting his own workshop called the Dollar Vigilante Professional Trading Techniques on March 2nd and 3rd. And we'll be talking about that and what he's offering. And actually, one of the interesting things was at the first in Acapulco, he actually did a live trading sort of seminar, and he actually made quite a bit of money right there while he was speaking. And a lot of people were trading along with him, so it was actually really great. So we'll see if he does anything like that again this year. But Tone, it's great to talk to you again.
Thank you. It's great to be on.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. And let's talk about Bitcoin. It's had quite the year since, of course, last year. It's basically, I think, tripled since about a year ago. It went up quite a bit right at the very beginning of 2017, then backed all the way off to almost 750. Now it's back above 1,000 again. What's your take on where Bitcoin's at right now?
Yeah, well, when I went to bed last night, it was at about 1,075. I woke up this morning, it was at 950. I'm like, what happened? And this year in particularly, I guess I'll talk about this year first, even though it's only been about a month, a little over a month. China has been causing this roller coaster, and it's not even China itself, it's speculation over what is going on in China. So in the beginning of the year, Bitcoin started off really, really good, and then all of a sudden, the Chinese exchanges add fees to all of their exchanges, and they remove leverage, and then we find out that the Chinese regulators are heavily involved in speaking with these Chinese exchanges. And the market panicked a little bit, and the price dropped from 1150 very early in the year down to all the way down to like 760. And I have lots of tweets saying as it was dropping past 900, I was saying how 760 should be an awesome support point. And I have technical reasons for it. Maybe I got lucky, maybe there was something there, but that's pretty much where it stopped. I personally wasn't really trading it. I was still traveling and speaking, but I tried to answer any questions that came my way. And then we went all the way back up last night to over almost 1,100 again, and then more news out of China. And when that happens, people around the world panic, and they start to sell, and then it slowly creeps its way back up. So I'm very, very optimistic. 2016 was a good year. We were going up almost the entire year. As far as price goes. One last comment I want to mention about Bitcoin, even though things are looking very well from a price perspective, under the hood, there's lots and lots of controversy regarding the block size and how many transactions the Bitcoin system can handle per second. And we're starting to stress that limit, so the number of transactions are kind of starting to back up, and it's taking a little longer for confirmation. There is a technical solution on the table for adoption, but there is so much politics on both sides that that solution is, there's lots of interest to prevent that solution from happening, but this is probably a debate for an entire show. But yeah, so there are some issues under the hood going on.
Yeah, I am quite interested to hear a little bit of your opinion. I know it is a very complex sort of a thing. We don't want to talk about it for hours, but on what's going to happen with this block size debate. I think what you were talking about was the segregated witness.
Correct.
And it looks like it's sort of, if I understand correctly, the amount of people interested in adopting it have sort of stalled out at around 25%. I'm not sure about that. I'll let you talk on that. What's your take on what might happen here? And if nothing does happen, could it really hurt Bitcoin?
Both of these questions are very, very difficult to answer. Of course, my opinion is biased because I have committed to a horse in the race. I am not one of the people that's saying, well, I'll be neutral. Both sides have a good point, whichever one the community decides. I'm not in that boat. I am a huge fan of segregated witness. My view is that segregated witness was something that took over a year for some of the smartest people, not just in Bitcoin, the smartest people I believe in the world, the best computer engineers we have that are happen to be working on Bitcoin, they put this together as a solution for scaling. It does not raise the block size. What it does is it restructures how much room current transactions take up in the block that allows for additional capacity, up to about 2 to 3 times more capacity without increasing the size of the block. And after that, it opens up the protocol of Bitcoin to building layers on top of it that would allow almost infinite amount of transactions per second for full scaling. Now, for reasons beyond my understanding, there are people blocking it, and those people seem to have a lot of momentum and a lot of popularity, and they feel that we need to have a more contentious hard fork to have a bigger block. And I completely disagree with their reasons. I can't even, it's hard for me to even play devil's advocate to present their position because I am so against it. I don't understand why they think this is good, other than they would be in control of future development and they would take it away from who I feel are the smart people. Now, if nothing happens, if neither solution happens and Bitcoin cannot scale with more transactions a second, will it significantly hurt Bitcoin? Well, it'll probably hurt Bitcoin in the form of micropayments and having Bitcoin as like your day-to-day currency. So basically someone paying $5 for a cup of coffee, that probably will go away. But that will not stop Bitcoin because it's still your most secure, your best way of sending value across borders, and it will just become more useful at larger amounts of value. So it will be something like $20,000 transactions, $30,000 transactions. You want to move your retirement money. You want to move your life savings. You want to leave from one country to another and take everything with you. Do you want to like hide this money from the government? Do you want to? It'll be more in that kind of a niche for large transactions that you will be willing to pay even $1,000 fee to move $30 million without asking for permission. And I think that's still a great use case. It's not ideal if that becomes the only use case, but I don't believe Bitcoin will die if it doesn't scale.
Yeah, if that were to happen, though, you would think that there'd be other cryptocurrencies that would come in to take the microtransaction market. You host a show called Crypto Scam. I know you're not a big fan of, I don't think you're a fan of any other cryptocurrency other than Bitcoin, but could you see that actually being a reason to get interested in some of these other cryptocurrencies?
I actually do. Well, it's a yes or a no question. So the one that I would say might have the most promise in the micro transaction space, if Bitcoin can't adopt a solution for micropayment scaling, would be Litecoin, which is actually adopting SegWit or trying to adopt SegWit. And there is a higher probability that Litecoin will get SegWit. And then Litecoin will build this Lightning channels on top of Litecoin, where you can start making these micropayments and they'll be pretty cheap. So there is some hope that that could be a micropayment channel. However, that's the good side of it. The odds are still stacked up against it. Even if it's the best candidate for micropayments, the odds are stacked up against it because when it comes to micropayments, there isn't as much of a need for censorship resistance. It's really not that big a deal. Your privacy isn't all that important in microchannels unless you know you're watching porn and there's micropayments involved, or you want to donate to something like WikiLeaks and there's micropayments involved. But companies that will take that on, they can give you the privacy. Like my email is centralized, but it's fully private. It's encrypted. Nobody knows the password but me. So even though, and so is there really a need for this cryptocurrency? There might be like current technological solutions that can solve the problem. Also, for something like Litecoin, at the end of the day, it's still in direct competition with Bitcoin for mining and the use of electricity and investment in hardware. And this is why I would lean to there can only be one currency-style blockchain, because only one can have the security. Because Litecoin is still competing for the same electricity as Bitcoin is, and I don't see 20 years from now both of them alive. Only one of them will be. Because of that direct competition for electricity and security.
Yeah, very interesting. Let's get into trading. Trading is something that I've never really done myself. I just don't have the psychological sort of skills to do trading. I'm sort of a big picture sort of a person, so I'm like, I know Bitcoin's good, I know gold and silver is good, I know precious metal stocks are good, but I let people like yourself or Ed Bugos, our senior analyst, tell me exactly when to buy and sell, because it takes a lot of skill and a lot of really paying attention to be a good trader. So you're actually going to have, after as I mentioned, we're having the Dollar Vigilante Summit on February 24th, which a lot of great people are going to be speaking at. We have G. Edward Griffin. We're going to have David Morgan, probably the top silver analyst in the world. Of course, Ed Bugos, I didn't mention him, but of course he'll be there, our senior analyst. Then we have Bill Murphy of GATA, Gold Antitrust Action Committee. Bix Weir of RoadToRoota with a really interesting sort of take on things, on what's really going on with the markets and the central banks. Roger Ver of the sort of the Bitcoin Jesus, and he's also of Bitcoin.com. We're going to have Colin Cattell of Palisade Capital, and other people as well. And Tony, we may even have you if we can fit you in. It's just we have so many people that day. It's hard, and we're going to have a full 2 days after the whole Anarchapulco CryptoPoco conference on March 2nd and 3rd. So before we get into it, I just want to mention that the one book I read about trading called Reminiscences of a Stock Operator, which is sort of about Jesse Livermore's life, is absolutely one of the craziest books I've ever read in my life, and the way, if the book's even half true about what he did like 100 years ago, it's absolutely truly astonishing and unbelievable that anyone could do that. I don't know if you've read that book, Tom, but
I have not read the book, but I am familiar with Jesse Livermore, and he ended up losing it all because he was a bear, and people don't realize how difficult it is for those that want to short the market and profit from a crash. Because when you're wrong, it hurts you a lot more than if you're wrong the other way around.
Yeah, if you read the book, he went broke numerous times. He was just always putting all of his money, and it was a lot of money at certain points, all on certain bets, like cotton going up or down. It's amazing, but I'm not that kind of person who's really a trader. You are. That's what you did. You have a background in Wall Street. You're an expert in trading, so you're going to be having your 2-day trading techniques with Tone Vays workshop on March 2nd and 3rd. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you'll be talking about? And the interesting thing that I find about this is it's not just for Bitcoin, it's not just for cryptocurrencies, it's not just for stocks. You can actually apply all of this technical and trading analysis to anything you want.
Correct. So what I will be doing in that 2-day seminar following the conference itself, and of course I recommend people come to the conference. I'm a speaker during the conference. Me and you will talk. Maybe you will be able to squeeze me in for the summit that I did speak at it last year. And people did get a lot out of that presentation as well. So what I'm going to be focusing on is the basics of technical analysis. This is knowing how to read a chart. There is something called fundamental analysis, which is trying to understand the company itself, looking at the books of the company, its PE ratios, its earnings reports, looking at how the insiders are trading it, how much stock they have, what other analysts say. That's fundamental analysis. What I focus on is technical analysis, which is reading the chart. So you assume that other traders are doing the fundamental analysis, and the big boys at the hedge funds, they decide whether a company is a good investment or not. And then you are looking at the price action of the stock and trying to analyze whether it's technically and through pattern recognition, whether it's a good buy or a good sell. And these techniques, they're not specific to any asset. They apply across all assets. It's the same techniques used in gold, silver, all commodities, stocks, indices themselves, like the S&P 500, and also Bitcoin. But in Bitcoin, it's applied a little bit differently because Bitcoin markets are 24/7. They don't close. So there are specific strategies that people use based on gaps, because a stock will close at one price and it'll open at a different price, and sometimes it fills the gap and sometimes it runs away with further in the same direction. And these are just some of the strategies traders utilize, and I want to present them. Now, I try not to give direct financial advice, and this seminar doesn't do that. What this seminar does is basically it puts you on a similar level as other technical traders, or at least introduces you to it. So the analogy that I like to use is I'm trying to teach you how to drive a car. Whether you become a race car driver and make a lot of money from your skills of driving the car, or you end up in a big accident, that is how much time and effort and risk you devote to the basic information that I teach you in understanding how to use technical analysis.
Yeah, that's great. And I see you have two full days. It looks like the first day would be mostly learning, and the second day will actually be taking what a lot of people have learned and actually putting it into practice, which is what I mentioned before that you did at the first in Acapulco, which was really cool in that people were watching as you were trading live, and you actually ended up making a win that time.
Yes, that was convenient. I did two presentations that day, one in the morning where I showed something like this, and one later in the afternoon was my normal Bitcoin presentation. And the trade I threw on there because I noticed something in the morning when when I came up to the stage the second time, I pulled up that trade and it was doing pretty well. But a lot of this trading goes back and forth. It takes a lot of time and a lot of skill, especially directional trading where you're picking a direction. It's very difficult, and you just need to be right more often than you are wrong. Or you can be wrong more often than you're right, as long as you recognize your mistakes quickly and only lose a little bit of money. But when your trades are good, you let those trades go longer and they make you more money than the number of losses that you have. There are different strategies that people implement. I've been doing this for almost 15 years now, and I'm trying to step away from directional trading. It's very difficult to pick direction. And I'm at a level where I'm trying to profit from non-directional trading and taking advantage of mispricing in the market. But this is very, very advanced, and you can't get to this stage until you've gone through all the growing pains of fully understanding trading and survived through it.
Yeah, it's, as I mentioned, it's not easy to be a trader, but if you're good at it, like Jesse Livermore was, I think he was pretty much one of the richest people in the world at one point. He started from essentially nothing. That was 100 years ago, of course. But one thing that's interesting to me is the Bitcoin market, and even in other cryptocurrencies, but Bitcoin in particular, doesn't seem as difficult to me, and I might be wrong on this, as trading the overall stock market or certain stocks. It just seems a little less manipulated. Obviously, it seems like it's smaller and newer markets. You don't have literally millions of other really professional traders in there. Is that your experience, that perhaps Bitcoin's a little easier to trade than, say, your average stock at this moment in time?
This is a very interesting question. So I'm sure this is how a lot of traders feel who began trading more recently, where Bitcoin actually dominates their trading. Because I spent 10 years trading the traditional markets before Bitcoin came along, I am much more comfortable trading the traditional markets. And to me, I'm like, yes, the traditional markets might be more manipulated, but the way Goldman Sachs manipulates the traditional markets is somewhat irrelevant to me. It doesn't affect me. So, because I'm a small trader, and if I'm a small trader, I would rather piggyback on what I think Goldman Sachs is doing, because they're not my competition. But in Bitcoin, someone with a few $1,000,000, which is absolutely nothing in the traditional finance space, someone with a few $1,000,000 can significantly move the market. And I don't want to compete with a person with a few $1,000,000. I want to compete with a person with a few $1,000,000, but I don't want their few million to cause me problems. In a traditional market, a simple millionaire is not going to cause me any problems. So I personally find Bitcoin to be a little less predictable, even though lately on my YouTube channel where I talk about Bitcoin movements, I've been doing extremely well the last 6 months predicting every move in Bitcoin, but I've also gone on terrible stretches where it's completely the opposite way around. And these random moves in Bitcoin because some guy had $100,000 and decided to go all in or all out, significantly moved the market to affect my position. That's not how I personally like to trade.
That's really interesting, your perspective. I never thought about it that way. Yeah, so it's going to be really, for people out there, if you're interested in any of this sort of stuff, if you're interested in the Dollar Vigilante, come to our summit on February 24th. Going to have so many great speakers there. Last year we had so many great speakers as well, and Ed Bugos, all of his stock picks were up 100, 200% within 6 months of the conference. I'm expecting he'll probably do something similar again this year, so definitely worth it. Then right after that is February 25th to 28th is Anarcho-Poco. You're going to have 3 full days of anarcho-capitalists. A lot of them are actually changing the world, creating new companies, all kinds of things like that. So if you're interested in that, check that out. Then on the final days called Crypto-Poco, it's part of the Anarcho-Poco conference, but it's all just for blockchain and cryptocurrencies. We're going to have so many amazing speakers there. Of course, Roger Ver, Trace Mayer, Tone Vays, of course. We're going to have Dan Larimer of Steam. We're going to have just so many people. You check it out at cryptopoco.com. So if you're interested in cryptocurrencies and blockchain stuff, you got to come to that. And then afterwards, if you want, you can even, if you want to learn how to trade, check out Tone's thing on March 2nd and 3rd. We'll put the links to it down below, or you can just find it at anarchopoco.com and just scroll all the way to the bottom. You see all the workshops. So really a full week of stuff if people want to come and learn.
Yeah, hey Jeff, so I will add one more thing, and people can check me on this. I haven't actually checked the numbers myself, but I will before my presentation in about 3 weeks now. Wow, it's really coming up quick. Or even less than that, in about 2 weeks. So during my presentation, even though I talked about Bitcoin, I also talked about the general markets. And last year's conference was around February 18th, I believe. It was around that time, February 18th, 19th. But we can double check the dates. It's all on the internet.
It's around then.
I stood on stage and I said, for the next year, I believed that the stock market was a great, S&P 500 was a buy, and gold was actually a short, a sell. And at the time, I clearly remember the S&P 500 was around 1950, and right now it's at 2300. And gold, I believe, was at around 1250, and right now it's at about the same price, but we'll see. But it's been moving up and down a lot. So those were my predictions at last year's, and it's on video. And when I come up on stage, we'll take a look how those two things performed this year, exactly 1 year later.
Yeah, it's great. We had so many great people with and a lot of great insight and advice. So definitely worth your time to check it all out, or even just parts of it.
And people did laugh at me a little bit when I said that, because the stock market had just like crashed. It was February of last year. I don't remember why it did. But and people kind of laughed at me when I said the S&P 500 is a great investment, and so far so good. It's almost a few more weeks till exactly 1 year.
Yeah, we'll see what happens in the next few weeks, but so far so good. So yeah, check it all out. As I mentioned, the Dollar Vigilante Investment Summit, we'll have the links to that down below, and Anarcho-Poco, Crypto-Poco down below. We'll have the links to Tone's trading workshop, which is 2 full days of it, all on the beach here in Acapulco, Mexico. I know it looks better than where you... where
it's
you
the
are right
complete
now.
opposite on my end. This is why I set up my camera from my window. I hope the audience can see the blizzard that's coming into New York right now. So I can't wait for Acapulco. I'm going to stay there a full 2 weeks. I have that little 1-day break between the 5 days of the conference and the summit, and then my seminar. I wanted to spend 1 day on the beach and then get right back to work.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's definitely a good time to get away from that weather up there. So, Tone, why don't you just remind everyone where they can find your information, your podcast, your website, anything else?
Sure. I'm fairly active on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter as Tone Vays. My blog is libertylifetrail.com. I recently started a new podcast series called Crypto Scam, where I spent about an hour with a different co-host, and we just do a little fireside chat on the projects in the crypto space, and I will be extending it beyond the crypto space, talk about other financial instruments, and maybe into social aspects of things. I also do economic and trading videos once or twice a week on my YouTube channel as well. Very easy to find at Tone Vays YouTube channel. And I'm a regular on the World Crypto Network YouTube channel, where we talk about the latest news and how it affects the crypto community. There's a show on Friday called The Bitcoin Group. So I'm becoming more of a content creator. I love it. It's great.
Yeah, sounds like you're keeping really busy, so we're glad to see you down here as well. We're going to also be busy down here, but it'll be a lot of fun as well on the beach. So check it all out. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, share down below, and we'll play the promo for the Dollar Vigilante Summit right after this, but that's it for the Dollar Vigilante. Stay safe out there.
The world is going to be dramatically different in just a few short years. The European Union is fracturing, beginning with Brexit. Donald Trump is ushering in a new era of populism and protectionism. Government debt is wildly out of control. Numerous central banks have gone to negative interest rates in order to keep the system going just a little while longer. Capital controls are increasing, while the war on cash has been pursued with fervor in places like India and Venezuela. The World Bank, IMF, Bank of Canada, George Soros, Jacob Rothschild, and many more have warned that we are in uncharted waters and on the edge of collapse. Putting your money in a mutual fund and holding it for 30 years will not work anymore. Jeff Berwick has been warning of this since founding the Dollar Vigilante with Ed Bugos in 2010, and his calls have been epic. He was the first prominent financial commentator to tell his subscribers and the public to get into Bitcoin when it was $3 in 2011. It is currently $800.
What's your connection to Bitcoin?
My main connection is I'm incredibly excited about it. Bitcoin is a revolution in money and banking, the same way that the internet was a revolution in communication.
Ed Bugos has been one of the few to warn of the 2001 and 2008 crashes, and has been bullish on gold since its bottom in the year 2000. And together, they are holding their annual TDV Investment and Internationalization Summit this February in Acapulco, Mexico, to help you prepare for the crisis ahead. Last year at the TDV Summit, they warned of what was coming and gave advice that made attendees fortunes.
This is why we're at where we're at, central banking. Give a man a gun and he can rob a bank. Give a man a bank and he can rob everyone. And you know, we all grew up watching old westerns and people would rob banks. Now it's the good old days, and now banks rob you.
Ed Bugos mentioned 3 stocks to buy. Agnico Eagle.
Agnico Eagle is run by one of the most experienced management teams in the industry.
And it rose 76.31% since. B2 Gold Corp.
B2 Gold Corp is responsible for discovering more than 30 million ounces of gold in their careers.
And it rose 248%. And Sabina Gold and Silver Corp.
Sabina is an emerging producer.
It then rose 147%. These are terrific calls, and this year you can expect more of them. Jeff Berwick and Ed Bugos will be surrounded with an all-star lineup of speakers, including author of The Creature from Jekyll Island, G. Edward Griffin, who will discuss the state of central banking today. The world's most respected silver analyst, David Morgan of The Morgan Report. Bix Weir of RoadToRoota.com on discovery of the truth behind our massively manipulated markets and to help expose those who threaten our free market system. Chairman of the Gold Antitrust Action Committee, GATA, Bill Murphy, continues to expose the manipulation of the gold price by the gold cartel. Returning speaker Roger Ver, the Bitcoin Jesus, who recommended buying Bitcoin at last year's conference when it was below $400. It has since risen to over $1,000. Other speakers include Chris Casey of Windrock Wealth Management and Colin Cattell of Palisade Global, and many more. The TDV Internationalization and Investment Summit will be an all-day and evening event on February 24th, held in the 5-star Mundo Imperial Resort and Convention Center in Acapulco, Mexico. For the price of $395, you will spend an entire day with these experts, including an entire evening gala banquet with all food and drinks included. You can find more at tdvinvestmentsummit.com and register today because space is limited. And stay after the summit for the 4-day Anarchapulco conference with the world's biggest anarcho-capitalist speakers, investors, and entrepreneurs, including an entire day on blockchain, Bitcoin, and cryptocurrencies called Cryptopolco on February 28th. And for even more, Tone Vays will host a 2-day stock and cryptocurrency trading workshop after Anarchapulco called TDV Pro Trading Techniques on March 2nd and 3rd. It will be an entire week of activities, and it all starts with the TDV Internationalization and Investment Summit on February 24th. Register now.